Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Sansing. I'm here with the What's Going On in Corpus Christi show once again. Next week I'll give you the changes for the June through December schedule. We go through a lottery to pick our times when we air the shows, and these have changed a little bit. I think I did get the 8:30 on Monday night, and then for this show, and then the 9 o'clock Monday evening for the South Texas News and Reviews, so that one will lead into the other. What I'd like to do first, as the president of the Taxpayers Association, we had a meeting earlier this month. This is the 10th. It's actually Mother's Day. And we had some discussions about things of importance to taxpayers around here, particularly the members of the Corpus Christi Taxpayers Association. And one of the top items that was up for discussion was the Memorial Coliseum and the continuing saga of the city of Corpus Christi trying to obtain money from the Friends of the Coliseum. Actually, 5 of the Friends, there were over 100 of them that signed up at a rally at the Coliseum site several years ago. It's been going on for a long time. Now, what happened was we had a very vindictive city attorney who can't read a contract. That's Mr. Carlos Valdez. Luckily, he's no longer associated with the city, and he lost the bid for, I think it was County Court at 4. That was Judge Klager's office. He got beat by a much better person as far as I'm concerned. But and I'm thankful he's not there. Now, Mr. Valdez read the contract. It was the special provisions section of specifications and forms of contracts and bonds for the Memorial Coliseum demolition. And this was prepared by Mr. Pedro Anaya, State of Texas professional engineer and Department of Engineering Services, City of Corpus Christi, Texas. And this is dated and hand dated as 1/18/2010. Okay? Now, in this special provisions and so forth, there is a specific paragraph which addresses the halt of demolition, halt of work by A&R Demolition Company, and what the consequences are to everyone involved. Okay? So let me read this to you, and if you would like, I can put this online. It's gsansing, GSANSING @gmail.com. And I'll be glad to respond to you. I'm getting quite a few emails in support of the Friends of the Coliseum asking why in the world, after the 13th Court of Appeals would render in the favor of the Friends of the Coliseum, the 5 of us that signed that bond, that ridiculously high bond, by the way, at the time. But this is something that I guess Mr. Valdez couldn't quite swallow. He's a very vindictive guy, and he didn't like me from times past at Delmar when he was the district attorney, and we had some accounting irregularities with one of his big buddies, who at the time was the vice president of business and finance, and another one of his good buddies who backed that person every time something showed up as an irregularity in the accounting at Delmar College. There was a local attorney that was on the board at the time, and I won't divulge the name of the VP of Business and Finance or the board member. You can go back in history and look it up. But they were both great big huge fans and friends of the then district attorney around here, one Carlos Valdez. And they got away with murder, folks. Okay? Now this one paragraph in these special provisions that Mr. Valdez doesn't seem to be able to read and understand as an attorney or anything else under the sun, then it says B711, okay? Suspension by court order. The contractor shall suspend such part or parts of the work ordered by the court and will not be entitled to additional compensation by virtue of such court order. Neither will he be liable to the city in the event and for the time the work is suspended by court order. Now, if if the demolition company has not had any penalties or any money that's been spent and any compensation or anything due to them by Judge Klager back at that time, then how does the city expect to be liable, or did they suffer any damages? I don't think so. Okay, I can't think of any, except it was, unless some of that real estate cartel down there had a contract pending that said that they had to have it down in a certain amount of time. Now, let me further indicate to you people, and I wish you'd go ahead and write the city and tell them they better watch out, because I'm just about ready to come back at the city for this. I put up with all the crap from them I'm going to in a lifetime, and I'm just sick and tired of it. Okay? So let me tell you what I have privy to. Just in case you want to stick this in your pipe, Nelda Martinez and city council members and all the rest of the people who were going to make a bunch of money out of that thing, and now we have a vacant lot down there that's going to pot. And let me just make the following statements. I have a sworn affidavit that there was work going on, continuing on at night inside of the Coliseum after Judge Klager ordered a halt in demolition and any work on down there. Okay? Now, if the city was paying the demolition company and claims those as damages, then they're in violation of the court order. Okay? They're in contempt of court. So I wish you'd push this on down there, city fathers and so forth, so I can prove that, and let's see if we can't get somebody to go to the slammer for contempt of court. I'm sure Judge Klager isn't going to appreciate that very much, any more than the taxpayers do. And why you insist on costing the taxpayers more and more money over this thing, it's a dead deal. You killed the Memorial Coliseum, and therefore the people that were so outraged about you tearing that down went out and voted against Destination Bayfront, which was your pet peeve around here. So, what you need to do is maybe go over to where it's real quiet one day and start thinking about that and using your brains for more than just to figure out how you can screw taxpayers out of more money. Okay? Because you're a detriment down there at City Hall as far as I'm concerned. And that means not only the council members and the mayor, but the city manager and the city secretary and all the people down there that just are wringing their hands, these real estate agents and real estate cartel, closing people, the title company people and all down there, and people married to other individuals that have public relations companies, and they're making a fortune every time somebody even thinks about coming to Corpus Christi, Texas. Now, I want to say that Mr. Valdez was on a crusade to try to shut the public up. That's exactly what going after the five of us amounted to, bottom line. You can't do this. How dare you speak up against the city? And you can't do that. This is a Gestapo state, and you're not going to be able to pull that off. Okay? Well, sorry, but I think the 13th Court of Appeals, Mr. Valdez, I didn't agree with you in the city. And why are you going to go back here with this guy, the new city attorney, Miles Risley or Risley, and he doesn't see it that way, that we didn't owe, that we incurred damages on there when the contract said we didn't, and it wasn't going to happen. Okay? So, Mr. Risley, I hope you watch this, and I hope you pull that contract. The section or paragraph B-7-11 is on page 23 of 28 on this document that the city drew up. Okay? So how are you going to negate that one there, pal? I don't know what it takes to be an attorney with the city, but I don't know if you have to just be totally unreasonable and brain dead or what. But if I were you, I'd be doing all I could to get the city fathers and so forth to back off of opening this can of worms. It's going to be very costly for you, and it's going to be very embarrassing. So I have proof that the court order that Judge Klager signed was violated by you people. It's called contempt of court. Okay? Now, another thing I've got proof of is when they started that demolition, they had pictures on the front page of the Caller-Times meticulously peeling the roofing off, which contained asbestos. And in here there's also a paragraph on asbestos abatement. Okay? So people in hazmat suits and respirators, and they were taking it off and bagging the roofing up and sending it to the appropriate place for disposal. And then as soon as the then 13th Court of Appeals ruled that they could yank that thing down, that it was too far gone to save, then they collapsed that other side of the roof, and there was asbestos-laden stuff blowing everywhere. And I do have videotapes of that. I've got samples that I have analyzed microscopically. And do you want me to go and see if I can get you a good class action suit down there with all the residents and anybody that went through the city at the time they were tearing that roof off and so forth, not according to remediation plans and so forth? Do you want me to unleash that? I mean, you know, how painful do you want to make it, folks? All I'm asking you to do is to go ahead and pay my attorney's fees and get me out of this thing and walk off and admit you screwed up. And now you've got $5 million that you say you can spend on building shade down there now that you've torn an acre's worth of prime shade down and build bathrooms. And then I was there along with another person when it was said that no, you can't use any of that money for that reroute down there, especially this $5 million that's left over for anything but streets. So I don't think shade and the Bayfront, whatever you call it now, Bayfront Center or whatever you're going to call that thing down there, you know, is a valid attempt to do that. So all I can say is this one ain't over, folks. And I've got the contract, I've got the opinion from the 13th Court of Appeals, and I've got my asbestos information and samples, and I've got the inclination to put an end to this thing. Okay. Now then I want to discuss right quick a happening. I mean, I think the city is despicable, folks. And then I read that Mayor Martinez doesn't want clean wind energy out there on Chapman Ranch Road because nobody likes to look at those windmills out there. They're unsightly and so forth. Well, how about the streets, Mayor? How many chug holes have you gone out and patched lately? Where are you going to try to steal the money from us taxpayers next to do that? So isn't that, you know, and I have people that come down here to Corpus just to see what's going on, and they say, my God, the place is a dump. It's the third world country. Why would we want to settle in down there? And then the same thing is, I mean, the only reason this place is booming is because of the Eagle Ford Shale, and now the bottom's fallen out of both the natural gas and the oil prices. So all I can say, Mayor and council members that want to have their development buddies out here raping and pillaging the land and putting in more infrastructure we can't afford to do, and put in more roads that you can't repair and keep up, then what are you doing? You know, I mean, have you lost your minds? I think so. Okay, it's all about you and your buddies. Okay, but when people come to this town, they say, man, that place is unsightly. You got chug holes. Look at Ocean Drive out here, and now Shoreline's a disaster. Okay, and you got this big open spot down there where that Coliseum used to be, and nothing's going on down there except a pile of pipes and some tractors and stuff and barricades. So all I can say is you people need to wake up and smell the roses one morning and get your brains in gear and figure out that you've screwed up royally. Okay. So don't try to shut me up. I'm not in the least bit intimidated by you people. Okay, as long as I've got a pulse and I'm breathing, then you're not going to be able to buffalo me and bully me around. I got a real hot flash for you. Now, coming up Monday, this will air after the event, unfortunately, but maybe for you people that watch this on YouTube, I'm going to try to get it on before Monday, tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Okay, but local Channel 6 TV, KRIS News at 6 o'clock is going to have an expose again on Del Mar College write-offs and the accounting irregularities that have gone on with that. Now, they've been running what are called teasers this whole week about that, and it's been pretty blatant about where that $2.838 million in write-offs has gone and why. Okay, so there again, Del Mar College won't take care of their business. The Board of Trustees sit over there and eat free lunches and have a good time, and then they go down for a retreat at the town club for 6 hours, and that's on your nickel out there, taxpayers. Okay, and the gist of that was, let's spend some more money that we really can't afford and don't need to build a South Side campus. I mean, that's total and complete insanity at this time in the history of Corpus Christi. Okay, so I just want to alert you, if you watch this on YouTube before 6 o'clock Monday, and I'm sure it'll air again 6 o'clock Monday evening, then go ahead and watch Channel 6. Mr. Rick Spurl and Mr. Andrew Ellison are going to put on the information that a good friend of mine, CPA, has helped me out with since August of 2013, when I heard that we had write-offs and we needed to go ahead and write this stuff off because we can't collect debts. And at that time it was a mere $185,000, okay, and $54,000 of that was Texas A&M University, Kingsville, $89,000 for the Coastal Bend Council of Governments, and since then part of that $2,838,000 some odd dollars has been $42,000 for the U.S. Navy and some other little items. Okay, so I think Mr. Spurl and Mr. Ellison are going to divulge that for you, and I can't thank Mr. Ed Bennett enough. When he came in as a very seasoned MBA, Master's in Accounting and bachelor's degree in accounting and a CPA for many, many years, and he's been able to help me. In fact, he's the lead person on that and understanding what's going on with those write-offs and the funny money at Del Mar College. We call them accounting irregularities. So I'm real curious to see how Del Mar College is going to dance around that since they didn't do that good a job when Channel 6 aired the $26.7 million boondoggle that Del Mar said it would cost for Mr. Bennett and I to get certain public information. So just stay tuned, folks. It ought to be a barn burner. Then while we're on the city, this same guy, Risley, what's his name? Yeah, Risley or Risley. He's been giving Jack Gordy a run around about the palm trees growing out of the sidewalk in violation of ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act violations. And he says, and he can't back this up, he's provided no information through Public Information Act request or just verbal request from Mr. Gordy to state that ADA had waived the and had let the city get away with having those trees over there in violation of ADA statutes and so forth. So all I know is apparently ADA is going to come down here and take a close look and find out why. Maybe Mr. Risley or Risley will go ahead with the feds coming in and provide them with the information, the documents that he used to say that we don't need to be in compliance, that our compliance was waived by ADA way back in the 90s. I'm going to be real curious to see. And if we are fined for that by ADA, then I think that the council people and the attorney, Mr. Risley, ought to be the ones to pay the fine off, not you taxpayers out there. Because if we've got people that can't read a contract or read letters and tries to cover stuff up like that at that level, then they need to be paying the freight for their screw-ups, not the taxpayers. Okay? And I wouldn't be surprised, and I would not be real remiss if we wiped that complete city council out with the mayor and got rid of the city manager and a bunch of attorneys. I do want to state that we supposedly have 21 attorneys that are being paid by the city as we speak, yet they spent in 1 year, in 2014, from January 1 to December 31st, they spent and paid $3.5 million plus to attorneys outside of the city limits and outside of Corpus Christi, Texas. Now, folks, that I mean, why? Okay, can anybody please enlighten me and explain that to me? Okay, now I know there's a bunch of slick attorneys outside because Delmar uses them all the time. One of the most expensive ones up there in San Antonio, Texas. So just after this show airs on Monday at 8:30, then follow that. If you've got a few minutes, you can watch my South Texas News and Reviews shows, which comes on the heels of that at 9 o'clock. And I've explained an awful lot on the show that comes right after this. I've explained a lot about my problems with Delmar College and paying outside attorneys to have them come in here and try to strip me of my First Amendment rights and my rights to judicial due process and so forth. And there is a ploy to try to get rid of me, and that's going to be very costly for Delmar College if they attempt that, like they have other people. Okay? So I'm just letting you know, taxpayers, you need to start calling the Board of Trustees, or Board of Regents over there, and start jumping up and down and saying, you know, why don't you people open your eyes and quit eating the free lunches and retreats at Town Club and so forth and so on, and go ahead and take care of business. Find out why we have these accounting irregularities and why we're spending so much money on outside attorneys, and why we have problems with the Texas Board of Nursing, and now we're going to mess around with that Sansing clown just about long enough to have some severe problems with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and SACS, which is our accreditation people, and the AAUP, which is the American Association of University Professors. So all I can say is keep it up, guys. You know, I have no fear of you, and I think that's probably the worst thing that you can do, because all you do is you plague people over there. You prey on their inability to have enough spine to stand up to you. But all I can say, and this is not bravado or anything but the truth, folks, I don't tell anything but the truth and statements of fact. You've met your match. Okay, I'm not afraid of you. So you do whatever you think you can get away with. But as the president of the Taxpayers Association and a taxpayer regardless of that, then I'm going to make sure you pay for it. Okay? And I don't want it to come out of the taxpayers' coffers. I want it to come out of your pockets. And that can be done. Okay? So I'd really pay heed there, city, that when the 13th Court of Appeals tells you that you're all wet and you're out of line with that Friends of the Coliseum business, then I think you need to pay attention and duck that one as fast as you can before it gets to be real costly. All right, that's not a threat. That's a statement of fact. You know, I'm too blooming old to be worried about being in trouble with anything, unless I violate a traffic law or go shoot somebody or something like that and really break the law. But you know, I'm just not afraid of you. I guess that's the bottom line. And I do want to thank once again Ed Bennett for all of his help, and we've made a very, I think, sound and worthy team to expose a bunch of this shenanigans going on with Delmar College accounting and so forth, the books over there, so to speak. All right, so I don't know what else to tell you, folks, except we've got a lot of things. I do want to know that, want you to know that there's a woman out here, Associate Professor of Sociology at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, who specializes in aging, education, and inequality. And she wrote back in April 26th cut abatements to fund streets. Now this is another thing that I want to do, and I ruined her name, I'm sure, on the air, but it's Isabel, Araiza, Ariaza. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry, ma'am, if I made that mistake. But her whole premise here with a forum that was in the Caller Times, like I say, on April 26th, is when it was published. It talks about how these government entities around here, Delmar, the city, the county, and so forth and so on, will give these large corporations huge tax abatements and, just incentives, they call those, so that they'll come to this town. Well, folks, they're going to come to this town anyway, because most of the time they're not held accountable for breaking their contracts with the public and so forth. But when you start delaying and putting off and giving them the ability not to have to pay taxes, then that costs me on my streets. And you know who has to make up the difference between that, particularly when they're bringing in big trucks over here and like these big oil companies and manufacturing companies and so forth, then it's costing me and the taxpayers, individual taxpayers, to cover up all the damage that they do to the roads and the atmosphere and infrastructure and everything else around here. So why don't you wise up? And my suggestion is get off your cans out there and quit being so apathetic when it comes voting time, and go over and vote the bums out, as they say. Let's see if we can get some people in here that have better interest, more so than their real estate interest and their business interest around here. And then they sit there and tell you through their surrogates that also write forums that, oh, this is a good place to be, we're going to really be the mecca of tourism and all this. Well, I hear tourists talking, and I've got people, friends of mine, that'll come to town that have never been here, and they say, when are you going to move out of that dump? Okay? We've got plastic bags flying everywhere, we've got trash everywhere, you've got grass up to your eyeballs, you've got chug holes in every street, and it's you got feces blowing out into the bay, so we can't go swimming out there, and so forth and so on. And so you're doing yourselves a great disservice, folks. I'm talking to the city fathers and so forth. But we'll discuss some more of this stuff. There are a lot of other issues that the Taxpayers Association members want to talk about. These were probably the top 3 or 4 that I've addressed today. But just keep those calls going down to city. Start raising Cain with them, jumping up and down, saying your actions are unacceptable to me as a taxpayer. And that's the only way you're going to do it. And I'm going to quote a great mentor of mine, Joe O'Brien, who really started the Taxpayers Association 30 some odd years ago, and to Mr. Jack Gordy, who took over from him for a long time and did an excellent job. And I feel very humbled to be the president, elected by, and my name was put forward by Jack Gordy. And but Joe O'Brien used to sign off and say that silence is not the answer. And it's not, folks. There's a lot of wisdom in that. Silence is not the answer. So if you sit there and don't start complaining and raising Cain like some of us do, you may wind up with a reputation around town like I have for just being some old nasty coot, disgruntled. Then try it out. And I'm going to wish you a good evening. I'll see you next week as soon as this buzzer goes off. All right, Ed. That's it. It was a quick 30 minutes. But, I'll let you put the front and the back on it. And hope that I've got somebody's attention out there. We keep trying. I can't wait until Monday at 6. It's too bad I'm going to be in a final exam. But I'll let you know. Anyway, I'm going to turn this thing off and